Good morning, Quad Cities. What a great day today. We got lots of good things happening at the clinic, and I want to tell you about a few of them. First of all, the title of the program today is The Perfect Transition. And most people, when they're working on their health, they need a transition. They can't just jump into it. I mean, I understand. Here I am. I'm going to talk about diet today. So I want you to know that what I expect you to do is just jump right in with both feet. We want you to be eating sticks and moss, okay? And a perfectly natural diet. Sticks and moss, no questions, no, objections, nothing, et cetera, et cetera. It just doesn't work. So there's got to be some kind of easing in process. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the perfect transition, okay? And before we do that, though, let's talk a little bit about the schedules, because we've got Tuesday evening at 6:30 is a very special time at the Welcome to Health Clinic, the Welcome to Health Center. It's a time when we get together and we talk about a specific problem. And the problem that we talk about is the problem of being overweight. Not just overweight, though, because most people that come in aren't just overweight. They're literally obese. And they've put on so much fat. And fat, by the way, is something that's absolutely wonderful. If it wasn't for fat, we'd all be dead for several reasons. One of the reasons is, of course, our ancestors would not have survived because they didn't experience the kind of continuous, plentiful food source that we have today. The supply chain is all tracked by IBM computers and everything else. And so, we've got all this stuff, organized and down, and we've got plenty all the time. And even the poor among us have, enough to survive on and kind of plentiful to survive on if you compare the average person in 150 years ago to the poorest person today. The poorest person is amazingly wealthy. And so, we got that all going, and it's great. It's fantastic. But we just aren't built for that. We're built for going through times of lean, times when we're basically out of food. And in that particular case, we live on our fat. So there is that. Fat is a wonderful thing to have when you need it. On the other hand, fat is a really horrible thing to have if you have to carry it around every day, year after year after year. And, in the clinic, we have these dieters who start out at 400 and some pounds. And, oh my gosh, what I would challenge you to do is go to the store and pick up a 50-pound bag of salt or something like that, and just try to carry it around the store without the shopping cart. And see what that does to your knees, see what it does to your ankles, see what it does to your arms, and just your general feeling of mobility. Do that. Even if you're real heavy, still do it. Pick it up and see what that actually feels like, and then put it down and start imagining what it's like, what your life would be like if you weren't carrying around that extra 50 pounds. Now you multiply that, because we have patients that come into the clinic that are 420 pounds. One of the ones that just comes to mind, 420 pounds. And he had a terrible time. Excuse me. He had a terrible time. His bucket list included being able to drive his stock car as many times as he wanted during the summer, during the events, and he just absolutely loved it. But he hadn't been able to get into his stock car for 5 years. When your bucket list just kind of crumbles around you so that you can't do what you really love, that's a pretty much of a heads up. Well, he took the bull by the horn, and he lost 120 pounds his first time through our diet. And you take 120 pounds off your knees, you take them off your ankles, you take them off your hip bones, etc. Oh my goodness. Talking about walking on the moon, what happened to gravity? It's just absolutely incredible. So, if you're in that kind of situation, you don't have to put up with it. Now, we're talking about the perfect transition, but, what transition from what to what? Well, we've already talked a little bit about what obesity often entails, and that is a breakdown of other systems like the joint systems of the knees and things like this, with just impossible weight loads being carried by inadequate mechanical devices. Cartilage is only designed to actually endure so much. And it will rise to the occasion. You'll overload it, and it will grow new cells and things, and it'll get toughened. Bones are that way too. They will get toughened up because our body is absolutely amazingly adaptive. There's no question about that. And the amount of strength and muscle you will produce is just absolutely amazing. But there is a limit. And you just stress it a little beyond that limit, and now you've got an injured meniscus or whatever in the knees, and it's just not worth the chance, particularly when you have to sacrifice things like one of the individuals at the clinic hadn't been hunting with his friends for about a decade, and he got his weight down 65 pounds, and he said, I'm going with him. I said, well, you didn't expect this. Do you have a license? I'm not even taking my gun. I'm just going. I said, why? He says, because I can. I can now. I can do what I normally want to do. I can actually take this as a project. I've taken it as a project. I've gotten down 65 pounds. I'm going to go. He didn't stop there, by the way. He took off even more than that. And and now he's on maintenance, okay? Saw him in the clinic this last week, and it was phenomenal. He was feeling so good. He's so enthusiastic. He's so loving his life that he never wants to go back. And believe me, that is such strong motivation for maintenance. And that's what we encourage. We encourage people to stay mindful about the benefits and have appreciation for what they've done for themselves. Because when it comes right down to it, nobody can make you healthy. Nobody can make you lose that weight. One of the things that I used to say a lot in the clinic was that, health's not for everyone. And that kind of sounds a little bit mean, maybe, it means like, there's a deterministic element in there. Health's not for everyone. But that's not what I was talking about. I was saying that health is a choice. Health is a choice. Health's not for everyone because not everyone wants it enough to actually do the things that are required to achieve it. And so, I'm not putting anybody down when I say that. It's like I would say life's not for everyone either. You go around and listen to people bellyache all the time and complain about this and complain about that. I mean, life is rich because it's full of challenges, right? It's full of things. It's full of problems to solve. I mean, you give yourself the life where you're just sitting there all the time in absolute bliss, and there's no problems. There's nothing to solve. There's just absolute bliss. No, et cetera, et cetera. It's the same days. This day is just like all the other days. And this moment is just like the last moment. We're just in bliss again, And you say to yourself, is that what you want? Is that life? Is that what you're really going for? I mean, that's almost the same as unconsciousness. Total bliss, 24/7, all the time, is kind of the same as unconsciousness because every moment is going to be exactly the same as the last moment. Time is completely gone, and maybe that's okay. I haven't been there for a while, but you might as well go down and find yourself a dealer and get some of these drugs that put you in that kind of mind state and try to stay there, except that it doesn't last, right? You do that and it's going to eventually crumble and you're going to eventually wake up in absolute agony and pain because that's what those kinds of drugs put you in. Opium is absolutely incredible when you're in pain and all that stuff, but it only lasts a week at that level. Or 2 weeks at the most. And then you're not only in the same kind of shape you were before, but you're in worse shape than you were before, unless you have more opium, and then finally it kills you. So, don't go for those kinds of images. Don't go for those kinds of cons. If you want your health, you've got to take responsibility for it. Health's not for everyone. And the perfect weight for you is not for everyone. They may choose not to do that. They may choose to be in what they consider the eternal bliss of constant eating and constant sugar. But we know that doesn't work either because then they get diabetes and they have to take a break out of their sugar highs to inject insulin or to take medications. And they find out the medications have side effects and the side effects are not pleasant and et cetera. And they can't control their blood sugars or they're afraid of dying because their blood sugar is all over the map, right? And so even though the promise of the medical world is that, you can have any condition and we can give you medication for it. You who are out there in that world know that that is a lie. That's not true. In fact, we were counseling somebody just last week, and our wonderful counselor, Kay, our weight loss coach, was counseling somebody, and one of the husbands came in, and he wasn't on the diet, etc., but he was complaining that he felt absolutely miserable, and the doctors hadn't been much help. They had recommended that, well, if your blood sugar goes low, you should drink a glass of orange juice. And he was all over the blood sugar map every day. He would wake up with high blood sugar, he would crash, then he would go, super, super high, and then he'd crash it again, and he was all over the map. And our coach just said one thing. He said, well, you don't have to overreact. Just your body turns protein into sugar. And, if you just do a little protein, then what will happen is it'll raise the sugar, it'll break it down slowly as it needs it, and it'll raise the sugar slowly so you don't have to spike and crash, spike and crash, and spike and crash. And she, of course, had recommended that, don't do this on my advice, and this is the recommendation of the show too. Ask your doctor about it. Clear it with your doctor first and find out whether you can experiment with it and try it and see if it works for you. So she did that, and of course, what happened? Well, you can kind of predict. The blood sugar came up slowly, and the person started feeling awesome by comparison to what they had been feeling. And they had a new method. So I would encourage you to kind of pay attention to these things and realize that when it comes right down to it, when you're making a transition from any kind of eating protocol to another protocol, you are careful with the transition. You just don't jump in with both feet. We're going to talk about it. Okay, so you want to make a transition. You're on a standard American diet, an SAD diet, a SAD diet, and it's not doing you any good. I mean, that all those commercials on television are calling your name, the IHOP commercials with all that syrup slathering all over those pancakes. You actually find that appealing. I have to tell you, I don't. I look at that, I just go, oh my God, that's absolutely disgusting. But you're still in the place where you find that appealing. You say, oh my gosh, let's go down to IHOP right now. Or I have some stuff in the refrigerator I can eat instead, because I'm too fat to get off the couch and too, unwieldy to actually make that trip. I'll wait until I'm actually out already. But, that's kind of where you're at right now. You don't even want to get off the couch. But boy, that looks good. If you're in that kind of state, I'm telling you, me telling you eat sticks and moss is not going to work. Okay? It's just not going to work. And I wouldn't tell you to do that anyway, of course. We want to stop a long way before we get to there. But you're not finding healthy food appealing. You're not finding healthy food. We get people all the time into the clinic that when you mention that our diet involves the eating of vegetables, they just go, that means corn and potatoes, right? And I say, no, it doesn't mean corn and potatoes. And they just say, oh God, that's not for me then. And that kind of extreme case is not unusual. That's the crazy part of it. It's not unusual because that's the standard American diet, the SAD diet. That's it. Okay? So what do we do then? Well, the transition that we encourage you to make involves a protocol, which we use at the clinic, called the Ideal Protein Protocol. It's been around for over 40 years, and it was in Europe for almost 35 years before it even came to the United States. And it is designed so well to usher a person at the right rate into a ketogenic diet, into ketosis. And ketosis means this. A ketone is a chemical that results as a result of you breaking down your fat. The triglycerides that you've stored in your fat cells go through the liver. They are changed to fat fumes that can dissolve in the blood. These fat fumes are called ketones, and they are taken by your blood to the rest of your body, and they nourish your cells. They enable your cells to make the energy that they need. Okay? You're breathing oxygen, you're breathing out carbon dioxide, you breathe in that oxygen, and that oxygen enables you to take sugar and fat, but in this case fat, and burn it. and produce energy molecules called ATP. And those energy molecules literally fuel everything in your body. The only reason you can hear me right now and listen is because in your brain, those energy molecules are moving ions around and creating an atmosphere or an environment where your nerves can send impulses and you can have thoughts and you can receive sensations and all of that stuff. So, I mean, what we're talking here is we are talking the ability to actually have energy and to move muscles and move thoughts and hearing and smelling and all these different things. That's all provided by this ability to produce energy in the mitochondria, the mighty mitochondria. Okay, now, so what are we going to do with this transition then? If we're going to be taking a person from a sad diet and moving them to a healthy diet, we use a middle ground. We use a transitional diet. And that diet better taste awesome. It better have sweet tastes in it, because if it doesn't have sweet taste, the standard American will not eat it at first, at least. It has to be something where you have flavorful foods, and you have flavorful foods that will sustain you from meal to meal to meal. It's something that has to have texture involved, and the textures that are involved in the ideal protein protocol are there are milky textures, there are watery textures, there are crispy textures, there are smooth, there are crunchy, there are tough, there are all these different mouth feels, because that's what we like as human beings. I mean, we have spicy foods that are chips. We have, things that taste like, we call them Dorados. I bet you can't guess what they're like, right? We have all of these different foods that actually are quite enticing. And if we, put them on television and put music behind them and stuff, they would look and be just as enticing as the things that you see about IHOP, et cetera, et cetera. And they taste just as good. But what's happening through the entire transition to healthy eating is people are actually finding themselves liking flavors they never thought they could stand. They find that, after a few weeks on this diet, and most of the things on the diet, there was no transition in terms of flavor at all. They absolutely love these foods. But, a few of them, they're just introducing them on a daily basis. And after a while, they start thinking, oh my gosh, this is not only not so bad, this is kind of good. And they start gaining a taste for these foods. And since the actual sugar, the actual sucrose or fructose that's in most of the foods throughout the entire world now, since those things have been absent, and the taste buds are starting to change, you get things like this. The person gets off the diet, and this happened early, back in 2010 when one of our first groups happened. This guy who had lost so much weight and went through the transition into maintenance, he was off the diet, and his wife bought him some whole wheat bread. Whole wheat bread. I mean, this was the actual stuff. This was not just white bread that was made brown by the bread company, It wasn't that kind of stuff. That's what you get most of the time. This was actually rough whole wheat bread, the kind that crumbles too easily and stuff, and he accused his wife of adding sugar to the bread because it was way too sweet. It didn't match anything that he had ever encountered as whole wheat bread before. He never liked whole wheat bread. He wouldn't eat it, etc. And this tasted way too good, and it was way too sweet. So she told him, read the package. He read the package. There was no added sugar. The ingredients were just whole wheat and the other things, you get it to stick together with a little bit. And it was just bread. It was bread the way it should be. But he thought it was too sweet. Why? Because his entire taste sense had made the transition while on the diet. And at that point, and this is true, I can personally attest to it, when you reach that point, the good foods, the healthy foods, taste as good to you as the rotten foods used to. And the foods like the slathering, syrupy pancake things with whipped cream and sugared strawberries and all that stuff, you eat that and you take one bite and you go, oh my God, did I used to eat this? This is disgusting. This is just like blowing the top of my head off with sugar. Oh, no, give me some good food. Give me some Give me a good breakfast. Give me something that has a robust flavor that and I'm not kidding about this stuff. This is the kind of thing that happens to people. Now, by the way, it's always possible to go back to the other diet, but it kind of takes some effort. You've got to have the social pressure, the same kind of stuff that got you smoking when you were, a teenager or whatever, social pressure, because smoking's nasty, right? Or the same kind of social pressure that got you drinking alcohol when the alcohol is nasty tasting stuff, but because of social pressure. Well, that same kind of thing can happen with sugar, and you can go right back and start gaining the weight back and becoming, obese, and all your bucket list is dissolved again, etc. But if you pay attention to what your taste buds are telling you and you stick with the stuff that tastes great, then you're going to be a good maintenance person. And by the way, at the clinic, you've got plenty of help. Our coach, our weight loss coach, sticks with you throughout the entire diet and also into maintenance. We've got people that have been maintaining for years now, and they're still coming into the clinic periodically to weigh in, to get some coaching, to kind of vent where they've had a few problems and to get some advice. So these are the kind of things you can expect from the Welcome to Health Center. It's a weight loss journey, and we're there with you the entire time. And we're into the future also. So stop by the clinic just to say hi if you want to, meet us, make an appointment, but come to the clinic seminar on Tuesday evening, 6:30. We'll love to see you there. Thanks much. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.